Hello friends, I'm Jade, and I've been running a small raid guild called What Is Killing Us, or more commonly known as Wipe. I've been raiding in Guild Wars 2 for over a year now, and I've become quite passionate about the content and the community I've created from it. And just like the majority of the Guild Wars raid community, I too would love to see the future content from ArenaNet involving raids. However, after spending hours upon hours reading through forums, discussions, and Reddit, and watching numerous streams from popular Guild Wars 2 streamers concerning the current state of raids, I have come to an understanding as to why focusing on raid content is not the best priority for ANET at this point. Raids are a massive undertaking for a development team that ultimately provides content for a much smaller demographic of the Guild Wars 2 community, and from my understanding, the community is quite small, and so it probably isn't justifiable for the devs to invest the time in generating raid content along with the rest of the features and content coming with the new expansion. Some hold on to the hope that a Wing 8 will drop after the expansion releases, which would be absolutely incredible, but the more common opinion is that raids are dying, if not already dead. So why are raids considered dead? I've spent a great deal of time gathering opinions, carefully observing player interactions, and experiencing raid content firsthand, and I've identified some major issues that are the reasons that I started the guild Wipe and am making this video series today. Although there are some major issues that the raids face on a mechanical and design level that ANET could fix to help inspire new growth in the content, there ultimately needs to be a massive surge of interest to show ANET that the content is still very lucrative and deserves some much needed attention, and that power lies solely in the hands of the community. So why are raids dead? Well, let's talk about it. You may have heard Mighty Teapot make such bold claims on his stream telling his viewers that they are killing themselves, essentially meaning that we are the ones ruining raid content for ourselves and others and ensuring that no future content is created. I think this becomes very clear when you read through the comments and the discussion threads on YouTube videos, stream chats, and of course Reddit. Whether that portion represents a small segment of the raid community or not, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that the most vocal participants of the raid community harbour a toxic or negative outlook on raids, and this looks very, very bad because it is the first impression that new players will gather when trying to decide whether or not to pick up Guild Wars and start raiding. We need to understand one very simple fact. Veteran players do not bring new content alone. New players do. And a good game developer or business in general base their entire production strategy off numbers that illustrate positive growth, and in the current state, I wouldn't say that the raid community is demonstrating those numbers effectively. So what happens next? Well, let's take a look at a few major problems within the raid community that are turning new players away from the game. I first want to address that some major efforts have already been established to help revitalize the raid community, such as the efforts being made in the Hardster community and the recent NA Raid Revival event. We have taken a few steps to show some dedication in the community, but it isn't enough and more contributions to the solution need to be made. The first major problem within the raid community that I would say contributes to all the rest is the very backwards mindset that experienced players approach raids with. Ask any player that raids in the pug scene what is required to get into raids, and I would bet that you would get responses like, you must have ascended gear, or you have to be able to play your profession well, or hit a certain benchmark, or keep a certain boon uptime, and more notably, you must be running meta raid builds. And I'm not even talking about the experience raids. You'd be surprised by how many raid commanders I've ran into that require those things even for their training runs. This is the first barrier that new players see when trying to get into raids, and earning ascended gear alone is an incredible grind for most players. The next major issue that I've observed is how much emphasis the general community places on DPS over mechanics. I find it so bizarre how obsessed some raiders are with getting top DPS in raids to the point where they'll actively face take mechanics and ignore everything around them just so they can squeeze out more damage than the next guy. I'm not gonna lie, that's how I started off in raids myself. I find it incredibly laughable now when I see someone trying to flex their damage numbers or talk themselves up about how many classes they can bench and then still fail simple mechanics in a raid. The idea that you should first master your rotation in class and then get better at dealing with mechanics over time is a terrible approach and is one of the main reasons people get kicked from pug raids every day. People should understand that raiding in Guild Wars 2 is so much less reliant on DPS than many other MMOs. While it is nice to raid in a group that can output high damage, it is far from necessary to clear a raid. This is the second barrier that new players face, since those standards are not easily met and are massively discouraging. Another issue that I've observed is an issue of opportunity. This is the more relevant in the NA raid scene, and the problem is with the lack of raid opportunities in the LFG. Now, some will say that the NA raids are dead, and although the LFG may reflect that, a recent video from Teapot and Snebsaw, both prominent raiders in the community, outlined the fact that raiding statics are much more common in the NA raid scene, leading to less raiders posting raids in the LFG. This massively alienates the vast community of new players and raiders that do not have the luxury to attend a static on a consistent basis. Some people just want to log in for the day, hop in on a few raids for an hour or two at random and engage the content that way. Most of these people have stated they have resorted to lying their way into experience runs in the LFG in order to gain some experience or complete their achievements. And while that works for some people, others have stated that it is a very annoying, stressful, and unfulfilling process that they only endured to finish a collection and then never touch the content again. The final issue I want to touch on kind of goes hand in hand with the previous, and that is what I like to call the blind leading the blind. For those of us who didn't know how to navigate the raid community or didn't want to join a massive Discord to get seldom opportunities to train raids, we started out a different way. So many groups form out of small groups of friends, small guilds, and sometimes a group of randoms that band up to learn the content together, and then everyone takes a look over guides on the internet and watches some videos, or maybe just a singular person takes on the leadership role and attempts to lead their group of novices through the wings for the first time. And while this method works out eventually, it ultimately contributes to all the major issues discussed previously. All those groups are so kill focused they don't care about how they get the kill, only that they do. When faced with a challenge they can't overcome, their common go-to is to optimize to achieve higher DPS and hopefully skip mechanics, or they pull out the carry classes to make up the issues of everyone failing simple mechanics. The main reason why this is a major flaw is because it floods the community with raiders that don't really understand the encounter and can't combat mechanics properly. They rely heavily on DPS as a crutch and can't manage if a DPS check fails, and they learn bad habits that are difficult to correct. These players have limited opportunities in the LFG and are punished because of it. I could quite literally talk for hours on this subject, but I'm not one to voice a problem without doing my best to propose a solution, so that's exactly what I want to talk about next. I started out in the Guild Wars 2 raiding like many others. I was very intimidated by the LFG and I didn't feel comfortable joining massive Discord communities at the time, so I did the most sensible thing I knew and I put together my own noob group. I poured over as many guides and videos as I could in order to learn the raids and then turned around and taught what I had learned to my 9 new friends. We went through all 7 wings in order, experiencing the joys of getting first kills together and the hardships that static groups are faced when dealing with extreme challenges that raids can induce. That group introduced me to some really great people in the community, which ultimately led to the creation of Wipe and the Wipe Standard. My professional background is comprised of over 11 years in teaching and leadership positions, so starting the guild and working with my awesome team of friends to get where we are today was something that I became very passionate about. We created Wipe at the time to offer a positive raid experience to the freshest of raiders that desperately wanted to learn raids but had issues navigating the community. We decided that creating training statics would be the most effective and enjoyable raid experience for new raiders, and I stand by that idea to this day. As of now, Wipe runs 8 generations of training statics, which have given us the opportunity to make many mistakes, try new things, and work on creating a method of training that can consistently prepare any raider for success in raids and the community scene. Something I have recently noticed is that, currently, there isn't a set standard of play that supports positive growth in the community and provides a set of realistic expectations that new raiders can work towards. What we have now are requirements stipulated by random individuals in the community that will dictate whether or not you are able to join a raid. I've spent a lot of time thinking about how Wipe can contribute to the efforts that the community is making to help revitalize raids, so here's what I came up with. My guild spends a lot of time in the LFG recruiting trainees for our statics and commanders to run them. One of the things I've learned is that there are a lot of raiders out there that love to raid but aren't quite confident enough in themselves to lead or train raids, or don't even have enough experience needed to run one effectively. That is an area that Wipe has become very experienced, thanks to our unique organization and what it enables us to do. I've stated many times in the past that we have no intention of growing too quickly since we enjoy our more familial archetype that we are able to maintain, but nevertheless I still wanted to share some of the experiences we do have with the greater community. We start out by identifying a problem. That problem is that there is a lack of raid opportunities in the LFG, and there is a misguided pug mentality that prioritizes optimization and DPS over mechanical comprehension. What we intend to do is attack the source of this problem head on, which starts with the commander. People who put themselves in a leadership position have the ability to influence the people they come in contact with, and a raid commander does just that. New players that join raid trainings in the LFG will get their first impression of raids in that session. This means we have an opportunity more so now than ever, with the new expansion dropping next year that will flood the game with many new players, to remold the mindsets in the community by training people that want to learn or improve their commanding that will in turn be able to run more training opportunities in the LFG and ensure that their raiders they work with leave the session with a positive outlook on raids and the ability to join LFG raids and stand on their own 2 feet. The way we will accomplish this is by sharing the wipe standard for raiding. This video is the first of an entire series that will be dedicated to training the commander. You will learn about our perspectives on raids and why we hold these views. You will dive into the role of the commander and learn what it means to be one. You will also learn how myself and others have found ways to tailor our trainings to adapt to the 4 most common learning styles. This series will outline key fundamentals of raiding that every raider should know, and then we will share strategies and training techniques that I have personally developed or learned from experienced commanders that have yielded very positive results. Then for those that have much less experience than others, we will have guides that cover every raid encounter in detail that speak to the commander and not so much the trainee. Our goal is to help you as a commander equip yourself with the tools and knowledge to lead any raid and train them to the wipe standard. So without further explanation, let me share with you the vision and the 5 objectives that make up the wipe standard. The wipe standard prioritizes mechanical comprehension over DPS. We've adopted the mentality that supports playing a safer composition over riskier ones with the belief that they will produce more consistent clears and more well-rounded raiders in the long run. The concept enforces that players should first work on mastering mechanics and work on their DPS and personal performance over time, rather than the opposite. Let's start out with these 5 objectives. The objectives that we have created are what make up the standard for wipe. When utilized in a raid training or any training run for that matter, you will be able to help gauge your performance as a commander and know when you have done a good job. So the first objective that we want to cover is to maintain a fun, positive learning environment. This is very important because we believe that our success in raids can be attributed to 50% encounter and class knowledge, and the other 50% is to team synergy. At the end of the day, if you're enjoying raiding with your group and are having fun learning the encounter, then the clears will come naturally as a result. We help cultivate this synergy by ensuring that our commanders maintain very positive environments where people can feel comfortable making mistakes and asking questions. So our objective 2, train raiders to become self-sufficient and have a thorough understanding of the encounter. One of the major issues we've seen in the raid community is that most raiders aren't given enough good opportunities to learn the raid encounters. The common practice is to either join a raid guild where you are either given limited opportunities to learn an encounter, or end up having to lie your way into experience runs where you ultimately get carried to your first kill. We see this as really bad for the overall health of the raid community because it promotes toxicity and poor mentalities when it comes to raiding. That is why we focus on training our raiders in wipe to achieve thorough mechanic comprehension so that they know when mechanics happen and, more importantly, why. The long-term goal is to produce raiders that can go back into the raid LFG and join experienced groups and be able to stand on their own 2 feet. Objective number 3 is that all roles must be performed by trainees, with multiple trainees having the chance to learn these various specialty roles in order to promote complex ability. In the past, it has been common for commanders to either assume the tank role for easy callouts or to fill any role that cannot be filled by a trainee immediately. And although we recognise this has to be the case in some situations, we ultimately view that approach as an opportunity missed. My goal as a training commander is to ensure that I have given every opportunity to my trainees to learn and assume all the roles when possible. It's worth taking the extra time to help multiple trainees understand and to be able to play each individual role so that your compositions aren't super reliant on this one person showing up. It also allows others to branch out and experience different roles and classes, which further increase the success in the LFG. Take a few pulls if needed to demonstrate the correct execution of the role, and then be sure to get trainees in that position for the remainder of the session. Our 4th objective is work towards achieving kills with 100% team survival. I cannot express how important this one is to the standard. Wipe rejects carry play and promotes team play. So if you ever join a wipe training session, you can expect to pull your weight the entire time. If you're looking for easy kills, then wipe won't be an option for you. This doesn't mean that we won't allow very strong classes with carry potential like Heal Tempest, Scourge, and Healbrand, but rather we will utilize these classes to assist trainees in practicing repetitive mechanics without needing to wipe frequently. These classes can later be dropped once the commander feels that the group has a very good grasp on the mechanics in practice. The end goal is to ensure that everyone is alive for the kill. Once we've implemented this standard, we've seen positive behaviours in our trainees such as proactive raising of teammates, more careful attention to mechanics, and less rotation tunnel vision. Once it is made clear that the only way you can achieve victory is by ensuring your entire team crosses the finish line is when you get to see true teamwork develop. Our fifth objective optimizes composition to produce faster kills and more competitive gameplay. We save this for the last because it is the last thing we believe that our raiders should be focusing on. There is a quote by the Dalai Lama that goes like this: "Know the rules well so you can break them effectively." This is the mentality that Wipe is grown into. Once you have mastered the fundamental mechanics and have a solid understanding of the encounter, then you are fully equipped to begin optimizing and taking shortcuts. It's no secret that in Guild Wars 2, having compositions with high damage ceilings allows you to skip many mechanics in raids. However, these compositions often come with high risks. We see many new raiders and pug groups trying to replicate these strategies developed by highly experienced groups, and most often will fail in the execution. These strategies also help gatekeep the content, since most new raiders will not be able to perform at that competitive level immediately. That is why we have prioritized optimization and competitive clearing last. We want our raiders to aspire to those levels of play, but we do want them to respect the process first and understand the importance of building up to that point. I hope this video has helped outline and bring to light some issues that currently exist in the raid community, and given you some information on how we would like to be a part of this effort in creating a solution. If this is something that you think would be helpful to you, I would consider dropping a like, subscribing to the channel so that you can stay tuned for the next video in this series that will be talking about the role of the commander and what it means to be one. Thank you for watching this video, and I look forward to hearing all your thoughts and discussions in the comments and talking to you more in the future. I'll see you in the next one.